December 12, 2023, News Report 1. According to Xinhua News Agency, Chinese President Xi Jinping has commenced a state visit to Vietnam today. Xi Jinping arrived in the Vietnamese capital, Hanoi, between 10 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. local time on December 12 and received a warm welcome from Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh and Minister of Internal Affairs of the Communist Party of Vietnam, Phan Dinh Nho. Upon arrival, President Xi proceeded to the hotel accompanied by his entourage, including First Lady Peng Liyuan, Director of the General Office of the Central Committee Kai Chi, Foreign Minister Wang Yi, and Minister of Public Security Wang Xiaohong. President Xi, known for having Minister Wang Xiaohong accompany him on foreign visits, maintained a low profile during his 5-hour stay in Hanoi, and details of his schedule were not disclosed due to the ongoing Central Economic Work Conference. In the afternoon at 4 p.m., President Xi attended a welcome ceremony hosted by Vietnamese President Nguyen Phu Trong. Following the ceremony, President Xi held talks with President Nguyen Phu Trong. Both sides announced their commitment to building a strategically significant China-Vietnam community with a shared future on the basis of deepening the comprehensive strategic partnership. Against the backdrop of this visit, where President Xi Jinping aims to strengthen bilateral ties, it's noteworthy that President Biden visited Vietnam in September this year, elevating U.S.-Vietnam relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership, placing China-Vietnam relations at a similar level. During the talks, President Xi emphasized China's perspective on China-Vietnam relations from a strategic and long-term standpoint, designating Vietnam as a priority in its diplomatic efforts. In a gesture of the importance placed on the relationship, China and Vietnam signed a memorandum of cooperation on the digital economy, focusing on collaboration in areas such as information technology, communication, and digital transformation. Additionally, the two sides agreed to construct a cross-border bridge and establish a hotline to address maritime disputes jointly. Tomorrow, on December 13, President Xi Jinping will hold talks with Vietnamese President Vang Dinh Hue, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh, and National Assembly Chairman Vang Dinh Hue. The primary objective of this visit is to mend bilateral relations between China and Vietnam, particularly to prevent Vietnam from leaning towards the United States, even though Vietnam is inclined to adopt a middle path to gain more benefits and reduce the risk of potential conflicts with China. News Report 2. As reported by CCTV News on December 12, the Intermediate People's Court of Baoji City, Shaanxi Province, has accepted the first-instance trial of corruption charges against Shen Guangzhou, the general manager of China Railway Corporation, and sentenced him to 15 years in prison with a fine of 6 million yuan. Shen Guangzhou was accused of abusing his official position to seek benefits for related entities and individuals, accepting bribes totaling 56 million yuan. Shen Guangzhou, 73, a native of Jiangning, Jiangsu, previously served as Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Railways, Deputy Director and Director of the General Administration of Customs, and General Manager of China Railway Corporation. He stepped down in 2016 and was investigated in March 2021 after over 7 years of retirement. On December 12, the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection announced the expulsion of Dong Yunhu, the director of the Shanghai Municipal People's Congress, from the Communist Party for violating discipline and laws. Dong Yunhu is the first official at the ministerial level to be expelled from the party after the 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China. The CCDI statement mentioned that Dong Yunhu had privately accepted the qualifications of a member of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, CPPCC, causing adverse effects on politics. Earlier online rumors indicated that Dong Yunhu's mistress was appointed as a CPPCC member in 2020. Dong Yunhu, 61, a native of Zhejiang, previously served as Deputy Director of the Information Office of the State Council, Minister of the Propaganda Department of the Tibet Autonomous Region, Minister of the Propaganda Department of the Shanghai Municipal Committee of the Communist Party of China, Chairman of the Shanghai Municipal Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, and concurrently served as Chairman of the Shanghai Municipal People's Congress from January. this year. However, he was investigated in July after only half a year in office. Statistics show that 45 central-level officials have been investigated this year, the highest number since the 18th National Congress of the Communist Party of China, and two-thirds of them were investigated after retirement or stepping down, reflecting an upward trend in Xi Jinping's efforts to strengthen control. News Report 3. On December 12, former Speaker of the Legislative Yuan of Taiwan, Wang Jinping, hosted a luncheon inviting local figures who support Terry Go, expressing his desire to bring Terry Go back to the Kuomintang camp to make the Blue Camp more complete. Attendees at the luncheon included KMT Central Committee member Chen Zhongxin, former Taipei mayors Hao Longbin and Wu Juanli, and legislator Fu Kunqi. Wang Jinping is currently the chairman of the National Support Association for Ho Yuyi and expressed that although the Blue Camp's framework is essentially complete, the key task is to bring Terry Go back. Zhang Rongwei, the former Yunlin County magistrate who once supported Terry Go, stated that Terry Go himself has an open-minded attitude towards this and believes that he will eventually support Ho Yuyi. Terry Go, who initially ran for president as an independent during the KMT presidential election, is now being sought for his return to the party. However, it remains uncertain whether he will return. Meanwhile, the People First Party announced on December 12 that some public opinion polls have turned into tools for political maneuvering. If the support rate falls below 20%, they will disclose their internal poll results. The internal poll indicates that the Lai Xiao, Lai Ching-te, and Xiao Nian coalition ranks first with a support rate of 34.3%, followed by He, Ho Paowen and Yin Tianjian, with a support rate of 24.5%, and Ho Kong, Ho Yuyi and Kang Yuman, is last with a support rate of 22.9%. However, the support rate for Qi Wu ranks second, still lagging behind Lai Ching-te by 10 percentage points, making the victory difficult. It is worth noting that the People First Party's poll reveals a highly competitive landscape among various political coalitions. Additionally, Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense is actively combating espionage within the military. According to reports, Colonel Kong, a member of the Military Cultural Society at the Ministry of National Defense, was charged on December 11 with violating the national security law. The Military Cultural Society is responsible for providing military news photos and videos, and Colonel Kong has been accused of accepting money from China's intelligence organization since 2006, using free overseas trips to entice the military to make contact with Chinese intelligence units. Prosecutors have requested a heavy sentence for his actions. News Report 4. According to Agence France-Presse, AFP, reports, Dr. Eitan, the head of the psychiatric department at Ichilov Hospital in Israel, stated that the hostages abducted by Hamas were drugged to prevent them from resisting, and these hostages endured psychological and sexual torture. Dr. Eitan explained that the hostages were administered a drug called benzodiazepines, a central nervous system depressant with sedative effects similar to commonly used medications such as diazepam. He mentioned that some hostages were forced to take methamphetamine, a narcotic with hallucinogenic effects, which is now prohibited. Some hostages were kept in complete darkness for more than 4 days, leading to hallucinations and self-harm. One girl was subjected to methamphetamine abuse for several weeks. Meanwhile, Israel continued its military operations in Gaza on December 12, concentrating bombings on the southern cities of Khan Yunis and Rafah, bordering Egypt, resulting in intense battles. The Israeli military announced the encirclement of the last 2 strongholds of Hamas in northern Gaza, Jabalia and Shujaa. These strongholds lack weapons and food and are on the verge of collapse. Israel has called on Hamas militants to surrender, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated that hundreds of Hamas militants have surrendered in recent days, assuring their safety upon surrender. Israeli military authorities have posted reward posters of $27,000 throughout Gaza, hoping that residents will help capture Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. Gaza residents expressed that their patience with Hamas has reached its limit and hope that Hamas will surrender. A spokesperson for the U.S. State Department urged Israel to prioritize the lives of civilians and requested Israel to clearly instruct people to stay away from the conflict. However, Hamas also bears responsibility for protecting civilians. News Report 5. On December 11, China's Supreme Court issued regulations on the adjudication of dispute cases, intervening in the affairs of dowry disputes. The regulations clearly state that it is not permissible to demand property under the pretext of dowry, and if someone requests the return of dowry, the court should support it. The regulations further specify 3 situations that do not constitute dowry: gifts or cash of little value given on occasions of significance such as festivals and birthdays, consumable expenditures made by one party to the engagement to express or enhance emotions, such as dining out, other property of little value. In simple terms, expenses incurred during courtship should not be considered dowry. The court regulations state that if both parties to the marriage have already registered and lived together, and one party requests the return of dowry upon divorce, the court will not support it. However, if the amount is excessive, the court will reconsider. If the engaged couple has not registered but has lived together, and one party requests the return of dowry, the court will decide whether to return it and the proportion of the return based on factors such as the duration of cohabitation, the use of dowry, whether children have been born, and the fault of both parties. The court's intervention in dowry dispute affairs indicates that Chinese society has lost the ability to self-educate on this issue, and the court has had to start handling related matters. This also reflects society's attention to dowry issues and expectations for fairness and justice. News Report 6. According to Bloomberg, Evergrande has reached an agreement with domestic creditors, with the majority of them agreeing not to demand repayment this week, avoiding Evergrande's first domestic debt default. The debt involved in this case is 8 billion yuan, and the repurchase option will take effect on December 13, allowing creditors to request repayment before the maturity of the debt next year. Following a meeting between the Shenzhen Stock Exchange and Evergrande's creditors last week, most creditors chose not to exercise their repurchase rights. This agreement means that Evergrande has successfully avoided defaulting on its domestic debt amid a worsening domestic debt situation. However, Evergrande's debt crisis is far from over, as it defaulted on its dollar-denominated bonds in October this year. Evergrande's short-term debt, requiring repayment within 1 year, amounts to 1 trillion yuan. Given this enormous figure, doubts arise about whether Evergrande can achieve 1 trillion in property sales by the end of this year, making its survival a miraculous outcome. In addition, on December 12, Dalian Wanda Group announced that it had signed an agreement with the Thai Union Group, with Thai Union and other investors investing 38 billion yuan in Wanda Plaza, of which Thai Union invested 18 billion yuan. After the transaction is completed, Dalian Wanda will hold 40% of the equity in Wanda Plaza, while Thai Union and other investors will hold 60%, giving Thai Union and its investors control of Wanda Plaza. This deal is seen as a step in Wang Jianlin's selling assets for survival strategy, with Thai Union's 18 billion investment representing a debt claim on Guowenggue's Yuda International Trade Hotel in Zhengzhou, Hunan. Guowenggue was sued by Thai Union for failing to repay the loan and applied for bankruptcy. After the deal is completed, Thai Union and other investors will control Wanda Plaza, marking an asset exchange between Wang Jianlin and Thai Union. News Report 7. Data released by the U.S. Department of Labor on December 12 shows that the Consumer Price Index, CPI, for November in the United States was 3.1%, a 0.1% decrease from the previous month, hitting a new low since May. This indicates a further slowdown in inflation in the United States. The core CPI, which excludes food and energy, rose by 4% in November, in line with market expectations. The U.S. Department of Labor pointed out that the energy price index fell by 2.3% in November, with the gasoline index dropping by over 6%, while the food price index rose by 0.2% compared to the previous month but decreased by 0.1%. However, the housing index continued to rise in November, offsetting the decline in food and energy prices. According to market expectations, the Federal Reserve will announce the results of this month's meeting on December 13, but it is expected that there will be no interest rate hike in this meeting, and the meeting on January 31 next year is also not expected to see an interest rate hike. This data indicates that the U.S. Central Bank is cautious about raising interest rates in the context of considering inflation and economic recovery. News Report 8. The British Chamber of Commerce in China released its annual survey report on December 12, revealing that 60% of businesses believe that operating in China has become increasingly challenging over the past year. Among them, 78% of companies believe that the main difficulties are economic factors, and many companies have reflected that the strengthening of geopolitical factors and Chinese regulations has also increased operational difficulties. Regarding investment directions in China for the next year, the survey shows that 13% of respondents plan to reduce investment, 42% of companies plan to keep investment unchanged, and 35% of companies plan to increase investment. Fisher, the chairman of the British Chamber of Commerce, stated that in the past, 80% of companies said they would increase investment in China, but now it feels like it has entered a truly clear stage, with companies becoming more pragmatic and investment relatively decreasing. Some people believe that the significance of this survey is limited because in a country like China, where the government has strong control, the survey results may not be entirely truthful. Some opinions suggest that this survey may be influenced by political and business environments, so the results may not be objective. The survey was conducted from October to November, covering 301 companies in various fields, including education, professional services, manufacturing, and more. News Report 9. According to Bloomberg, on December 11, Special Prosecutor Smith of the U.S. Department of Justice requested the Supreme Court to expedite a ruling on whether former President Trump enjoys absolute presidential immunity from prosecution. Smith is responsible for handling Trump's mishandling of classified documents case and attempts to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. Trump has repeatedly claimed he has presidential immunity and cannot be prosecuted. On December 1, Judge Tanya Chutkan of the Washington Federal Court rejected Trump's request to dismiss the case related to the 2020 presidential election, prompting Trump to file an appeal. Smith has requested the Federal Appeals Court to expedite the review of Trump's appeal and simultaneously asked the Supreme Court to directly review Trump's appeal. The Supreme Court agreed to expedite the ruling and ordered Trump's lawyers to respond to Smith's request to the Supreme Court by December 20. This is the first time the Supreme Court has been asked to intervene in Trump's criminal proceedings, indicating that the Department of Justice wants Trump's case to be heard before the presidential election. News Report 10. The United Nations Climate Conference, originally scheduled to conclude on the morning of December 12, has been extended due to the failure of participating countries to reach a consensus. Oil and gas-producing countries, led by Saudi Arabia, oppose a draft agreement that does not require the phased elimination of all petrochemical fuels. The agreement calls for countries to stop wasteful consumption and subsidies for inefficient fossil fuels as soon as possible, reducing their consumption and production in a fair and orderly manner. This has drawn criticism from Western countries and environmentalists. U.S. climate envoy Kerry stated that this is a battle for survival. EU Climate Commissioner Hedegaard said that representatives may need several more days of negotiations to strengthen the language on phasing out fossil fuels to achieve the goal of controlling global warming at 1.5 degrees Celsius. News Report 11. On December 11, Taiwan's newly appointed representative to the United States, Yu Dalei, arrived in Washington, welcomed by the chairman of the American Institute in Taiwan, AIT, Rosenberger. Rosenberger expressed gratitude for the work of Xiao Meiqin and welcomed Udalii on Twitter. Udalii previously served as Taiwan's representative to the European Union and will continue to promote the development of Taiwan-US relations. He stated that he would work together with all members of the representative office to deepen Taiwan-US relations on the existing foundation. Rosenberger expressed confidence in Udalii, believing that under his professional support, the Taiwan-US partnership will continue to grow and strengthen.